worst case scenario, we can always do another one.
That's right.
Okay, so I think we are live, and then yeah, we are. Oh, hang on, no views streamed 1 minute ago, so I know there's a delay. So the one we did before, just ever so briefly, we just quickly delete that one so people don't get confused and think that
Okay.
it was a non-starter. Content. Okay, yeah, we are live right now, so let me get rid of the other one.
Okay.
And
I think I might be able to go.
delete.
It won't let me go live on my phone, Sean. It says no permission. I don't know if yours will do that.
Oh, you're trying to do it separately on your phone?
I was just going to do it on my phone to tell everybody, but it won't allow me.
All right, so folks, a bunch of rookies here. I've done these live streams before, not on the YouTube platform. I've done them on other stuff. Uh-oh, and we just lost Sean.
He'll be back.
Hopefully.
He's sitting in the cockpit.
There we go. Let me add him back in. Anyway, as this is intended to be a Ask Us Anything live stream, the way for you to ask us is to put your comments, or your questions rather, right down underneath the video, and I'll keep refreshing the page. And what the hell? Why isn't the live? So my YouTube studio says we are broadcasting, but yet on my channel, on the live tab, it does not show. So let me just click on this.
I'm going to go to your channel and see if it's working.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I've got a URL for it here. Let me put it in. I think I can put it in chat here for you guys. Hold on. Oh, you know what? I think we've got, I think I get comments and stuff through through the software that I'm using. So I think we have Philip and Trevor and Amar and Moses. Sorry if I really butchered that. And Jack and a bunch of folks. So I'm pretty sure. So if you guys are listening to the live stream with the Pro Pilot Playbook guys right now, go ahead and leave a comment so that I know that that is not an old. Yeah. Hello guys. All right, we're working.
Good. Oh yeah, I see yours. Let's see.
It was saying it wasn't showing up on YouTube. You were broadcasting on.
Okay,
you're
it's
on our
working.
channel.
All right.
So you've been trying to add our channel. Now we're only on our channel, evidently. Is that what's happening?
That might explain why it's showing. Oh wow, really? Because we're not going to do it that way. Let me just go to your channel for a minute. Oh my gosh, how does this even happen?
I don't know if I see it here.
Because there's nothing
guys, anybody
on mine.
watching, the plan was to broadcast this on both channels. Evidently, that's harder than you think it would be.
Yeah, Pro Pilot Playbook. Because if that's the case, well, there's no section on yours with a live tab.
It's working on your channel too, Trent. I think we're on both here.
Really? Yeah, I mean, because my YouTube manager thingy says that I am. It says live.
So you're seeing it on ours, Sean? I don't see it. I think we'll just post it as a recording.
It's a good thing we fly airplanes better than we do this stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
that's right.
All right, we've got it says live. I got it. It's on mine. It says live. We got 73 people here so far. I'm sure that number will go up. Okay, let's enough with the shenanigans. It is time to dive into the questions because this is intended to be an Ask Me Anything. So I will be the official moderator, and I will do my very best to scroll through the comments to pluck out the questions. And I'm going to put on my better shades for doing that. So there we go.
Sounds good, man.
All right, radio check, loud and clear. So a whole bunch of names here: Aaron, Jason, Moises, Mark. Okay, I'm looking for questions. All right. Any new flight schools in New Jersey that you would suggest? I'm in Fort Lee. I got nothing for that, guys. Do you have anything for that?
No.
Just make sure you're searching out something that lets you do it fast. You know,
yeah, we can talk about attributes.
Accelerated stuff.
I'm going to give you, and I've covered this in a previous video, but in case you haven't seen it, so the attributes that I look for are, number one, I want to go to part 61 because I want to be able to go at whatever pace that I want to go, and I don't want to be forced to take the ground school and pay for the ground school through the flight school, which is what part 141 loves to do. I'm also looking for as modern a fleet of aircraft as I can get, ideally glass cockpits, because you're not going to go and fly in the world on steam. Well, I mean, I guess in your low time pilot jobs you could, but most likely you're going to be flying glass. I'd like to see them with their own on-site maintenance, so they're not waiting on a third party that doesn't really care how long that plane is on the ground for. And then the final thing, and I'm probably good weather. Not too many students for how many aircraft they have. The best way to figure that out is to hang out in the parking lot, and when people come out of the building, just say, "Hey, are you a student here?" "Oh yeah, I am." "Cool. Well, I'm thinking of going here. Do you get enough flights? Do you have difficulty booking your flights? How often are those flights getting canceled, etc., etc.?" Hear it from the horse's mouth. And then finally, the hardest one, but arguably the one that will help you go the fastest if you can manage it, is do they have DPEs? They're not on staff. That's not the right way to phrase it, but they kind of hang around. Think of the school as like a honeypot, and the DPEs are just in there feeding off all the honey. Busy schools will keep DPEs busy, and that's what DPEs typically, if they're a full-time DP, that's what they want to do. So if you guys have anything to add to that, please feel free to dive in.
That's all stuff, Trent. That's all absolutely great stuff. I don't know of any specific schools in Jersey, but Jersey, you're going to have the weather problems. Of course, Trent just mentioned the 141 versus 61. 141 by its nature could never be accelerated. You would never, if you got a 141 school saying they do it fast, they're lying.
Yeah.
That's my tidbit. If you want this thing done, you know, lickety split, Jersey's probably not going to be the place to do it. I actually just came from New Jersey. I'm sitting in Florida right now. I just left Belmar, New Jersey.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is also I'm a motivation guy, so don't get wrapped around the axle on the perfect flight school. What's more important than the perfect flight school is that you actually start flying. And remember, you can change flight schools halfway through. It's not ideal, but you know, the big thing is to take action.
Or find an independent instructor like yours truly, who has managed to like in my case, what I've done is I've cobbled together a small fleet of aircraft by networking and getting to know the owners of these aircraft. And, you know, I fall short in my own thing in that the planes that I fly, they don't have steam gauges, but they have like Garmin 275s and G5. So it's like mini glass. And then there's either a 750 over on the other side, or in one case, the light sport is full glass both sides. But just find an instructor who you can work with and who you gel with. And in my case, the students that come here to train with me are typically flying on average 4.5 days per week, subject to whatever weather conditions may come our way. But you're going to get to train a lot, and you're going to get to make progress quickly. Somebody thinks we're the Three Stooges.
Casey, I just left Monmouth Executive, the Monmouth Jet Center up there. Yes.
All right, next question is from Nick. Is there a good reason not to do IFR training via accelerated programs? I've been hearing a few schools say that and wonder if it's because those want to squeeze students from training. So I'm going to save my answer for last. You guys go first.
I would say instrument is the one you want to do accelerated the most. By far, I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, the instrument rating is the hardest thing you're going to do in your flight training. And it is way simpler to do when you're there at the airport for 6 to 8 hours a day and you put it all into 10 or 12 days and boom, you're done. You want to stretch that out. It's just going to take you longer and cost you more money. That's my 2 cents on it. I think whoever's telling you that is 180 degrees from the truth.
Yeah, and it's also the most objective, rating. In other words, you kind of either know it or you don't. It's a lot of cut and dry procedures and things. Yeah, I can't think off the cuff of any negative to doing it at a rapid pace, really.
So my answer is this. If you look at the requirements for an instrument rating, one of them, you need 50 hours of PIC cross country. Or I don't even know if it's cross country. I think it's just PIC. You can literally just go fly around and stare out the window of an airplane and log that time, but you've got to have it. Now, maybe you accumulated that while you were in the solo phase of your private pilot's license, but if you didn't, you can kind of, do that on your own dime and your own time. Then you have to have 40 hours of simulated instrument, of which 20 can be done in an approved FAA simulator, which I highly recommend because A, you'll save money, and B, the scenarios that your instructor can give you are so much more diverse than what they can give you in the real plane, because most of us are in one area with only so many airports and only so many approaches to fly and only so many departures to fly, and we might not even have mountainous terrain, so you wouldn't have to deal with any ODPs or anything like that. And so simulators are really good for that stuff. So that's 20 of the 40 hours. Then the other 20 hours is hood time in the aircraft, which you can overlap on the required 15 hours of training that you have to have with an instructor. So what I've written on my website is, hey, go get your 50 hours before you get here. And then when you come here, you can get it done very quickly, because in 7 to 10 days, you can absolutely fly 20 hours in an airplane, and you can absolutely fly 20 hours in a simulator. So then that begs the question, well, at the end of that, are you a qualified, safe instrument pilot? No, you have the bare minimum of what you need to pass the check ride. So you're proficient at best. And then over time, you're going to gain experience. And as somebody or many people commented on my recent safety video, you have two buckets as a pilot. You got your luck bucket and your experience bucket, and your job's to fill the experience bucket before the luck bucket runs out. You're going to learn so much more after you get your instrument rating than you ever are beforehand. All you're learning before basically is how to fly an approach, how to intercept and track radials, how to hand fly and stay at altitude and stay on course and work the radio and do all those things. And that's what you can get done quickly. So yes, I agree with both Mike and Sean. Do it as absolutely fast as you can. Just know that 50-hour chunk, I don't really consider that to be part of the training for an instrument. It's part of the requirements to be eligible for a check ride. But really, how are you becoming a better instrument pilot by flying around looking out the window? Well, you're not.
Very good.
Yeah, Brad from Lexington. I started my day in Lexington, actually. Hello, thanks for joining.
All right, so the fellow whose name I've butchered now twice, it's Moises. Moses or Moises, I'm not sure, so I'm terribly sorry. I clicked on one of your short videos on YouTube, and then it showed me that you were live, but on your personal channel, it's not showing. Well, I think that's an old comment, because there are now 100, and at least last time I refreshed the page, 104 watching. All right, yeah, James.
I'm showing 128.
There we go. I'm just refreshing to see what the current count is, and now we're 128. Yes. Cool. Amar says, Mike and Sean, I started flight training because of you guys. So that's cool.
Oh,
that is cool. Trent, I think you mentioned that in your video,
that makes it all worth today. Thank you. Thank you.
That's one of the best comments to get. I know you said that today in one of your videos.
Yeah, I'm starting to screenshot those because I realized that I should have been, because I do get quite a few of them, and so I'm kind of making like my own little wall of these things, because honestly it feels pretty amazing to have that impact on people that are complete and total strangers, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit in this seat and do that. So don't think for a minute that we take that, I'm speaking for myself, but I bet I'm speaking for you guys too, that we take that lightly. It's quite something to hear. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So then we have, I'm just still scrolling here. Okay. Jason Steele His comment is tips for looking outside during VFR training. I seem to look inside more than my CFI would like. Well, my answer for that one is you have enough close calls near an on-towered airport and you're going to start looking out that window on a regular basis.
Yeah.
This is me in the instructor's chair as we approach a busy non-towered airport. This is all I'm doing the whole time because, sorry, you guys might not have been able to see that because I was off camera. I'm leaning forward. I'm looking this way. I'm looking this way because I've had too many close calls from pilots who don't have great pattern entry procedures or don't talk well enough on the radio. So, guys, I don't know what a better answer than that is other than you just got to get in the habit of looking out the window. Because remember, and this is one of my closest calls, bush plane. There's a lot of bush planes here in Idaho, and they don't run ADS-B because they don't want the government spying on them when they go flying. And they don't feel the need to talk on the radio. And this particular guy, a bush plane, he's off the ground at 150 feet. He went up, turned right. He's departing midfield. I'm coming in on a 45-degree join for the downwind at pattern altitude. Probably came within 300 feet, 400 feet of his plane. Didn't hear a word. That kind of stuff trains you to look out the window.
Yeah, you can never be too careful. And I think, what we used to say, I don't know if this is a true stat or not, but I think 90% of all midair collisions happen within 3 miles of an uncontrolled field on a clear day. Yeah, you just, especially going to those non-towered fields, you cannot be careful enough. So I know it's hard, when you're learning, you're so focused on what you're doing and the instruments and everything, but, you got to really get your eyes outside.
Yeah, and some of that stuff will go away. The more time you get in these machines. Right now, you're in that zone of not knowing what's important from what's, you have no idea. As you grow experience, you're going to be able to you're going to be more ahead of the airplane, and that kind of thing is going to become second nature. You're not going to have to think about, I'm not looking out the window enough. I remember I had a flight instructor years and years ago, back when I was doing my primary training, would say, he'd say stuff like, "You're so far behind the airplane. If we crashed, you'd still survive. You'd be fine."
I've heard that one. I like it. All right. So
but that stuff goes away with experience.
Steve Britt says, what are your thoughts on getting a light sports CFI with low time as suggested in the Pilot Katie video? So maybe you guys know about that video or don't know about that video.
I watched it. That was an awesome video. I had no idea you could do that until I watched that.
And neither did I. So I don't profess to be the expert on light sport that Pilot Katie is, other than to say, I think it's a great way to save money. First of all, the light sport aircraft is cheaper to rent. It's my primary trainer, so I know it's like $20 an hour cheaper. And it enables you to become a CFI-S without an instrument rating and without a commercial pilot's license. So if you can put yourself in a position where you can get other people to start paying for the bills, the sooner the better. I don't see any downside in that. And obviously that's what the whole video with Katie was about. And that's why she was able to do everything that I did, I think, plus even one more rating for even less than I did it. I came in, I think, at 47 and she came in at 37. I thought I was the record holder, but apparently I got dethroned. So she did a heck of a job. So if you guys have anything to add to that?
No, I think everybody should watch that video because that's very interesting. I guess geographically, I know that was like the light sport capital of the world where she's at down there. So there might be more demand. I don't know. I know they're cheaper to rent, but those are really expensive to buy. What's that, John?
My concern was where are these things at? I mean, they could be everywhere, but I don't recall seeing them everywhere. I think she's right in that perfect spot and was exposed to it all. I think somebody doing this may have to travel somewhere to be able to take advantage of some of that stuff. But man, what an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to factor into this is Mosaic. Do you guys know about Mosaic and what's happening with that? So very briefly, and I'm no Mosaic expert, so if you know more than me, chime in. There's a good video on Mojo Mike's channel, Mojo Grip, and he talked about how basically how light sports are about to get a whole lot heavier. And the reason is the FAA is going to allow the maximum weight of a light sport to get up to like 3,000 pounds. The maximum speed to, I think it's 250 or 230 knots.
Now you're talking.
You can have a stall speed is about 57 knots, I think, which is much lower than that now. So that's going to enable manufacturers to make different airplanes than they, and this was Mike's take on it, than they're making now, which means like even a 172 is technically a light sport. So that that means that potentially you could train a whole lot more people who are training the traditional way now. So I would really dive into the Mosaic, and it's something actually I thought I should probably do myself and then make a video on. So that might come from me here in the next 2 weeks.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, anytime you can save money, by all means, do it. Unless it's coming at a cost of safety, which in the light sports case isn't. Because I will tell you, one of the things that I really do like about the plane that I fly, with such an incredibly low stall speed of 34 knots, I literally almost don't even worry about an engine failure. I'm like, I put this thing down anywhere, I'm gonna like crash at 40 miles an hour, not 80. There's a big difference if you understand kinetic energy. There's a big difference between 80 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour, like a life-changing bit of difference.
Yeah.
All right. So Hank has
my
questions.
only concern, real quick on that though, my only concern was after you become a light sport instructor, you know, you got to be in that community. You're going to have to hang out. If your whole goal is to just build time with this thing, and you can get to that point of getting paid for flying instead of paying for flying, you know, you got to be in an area where there's light sports you can instruct in. Otherwise, you know, if you just travel somewhere and you knock this thing out, oh, I got my CFI in light sports, and then you go back home to like where I'm at in Cincinnati and there's no light sports, you kind of just, now you're slowing your whole process down here. You're throwing wrenches into gears that don't need to be there.
Right.
True. Okay, next question is from Hank Jones. Do you have advice for home simulators? I suspect I probably have the wildest simulator of the three of us here. For those who've never seen my simulator video or my simulator, I probably have 20 grand into it. It's a full motion platform, virtual reality, got all the controls. I got the HODAS, I've got the yoke, I've got the throttle quadrant, the nice rudder pedals, the whole shebang.
How do you have time for all that?
Well, it was a hobby before, I mean, for like the last 10 years or more, I've been a sim geek. It's also a race car simulator, so it's cool. Used for two things. Anyway, my advice is this. You do not need to spend as much money as I did, number one. However, the one thing that significantly enhances, so it's valuable for two types of training. One, instrument training. It is Microsoft Flight Simulator. You don't need virtual reality. You can literally fly just with the panel of the aircraft taking up the entire monitor, because you don't need to see out the window, because it's not about landing and all that kind of stuff. It's about understanding your instrument procedures and being able to fly them correctly and use the radio, which Microsoft's Flight Sim's pretty good at. So you can do that on a laptop. Now, where it can be very helpful for private pilots, honestly, is the whole sight picture and learning how to land. I published a video recently where I had my VR goggles on, and I will tell you that the sight picture in VR goggles is exactly the same as it is in the real 172. So if you're struggling to learn how to round out and how to flare and how to land without, you know, pounding the nose wheel into the ground, it's absolutely going to help you with that. But for VR, you need the fastest CPU and pretty much the fastest video card. So you're looking, you know, cha-ching ching to build the PC that you need to do that.
Yeah, we hooked my son's Oculus up to my editing machine in my office, and flew a seaplane around a little bit. That is crazy. I agree, Trent. It is pretty realistic looking around the cockpit and seeing this thing.
Yeah, you're in the cockpit. You're not looking at the cockpit on the screen in front of you. You're like,
right.
You're in it. And you look over, and if you got there's even a co-pilot over there, and you can put passengers in the back. And so,
wow,
you turn around, there's a back seat behind you, the whole 9 yards. It's crazy.
Yeah, and Microsoft just keeps making it better and better and better. Every 3 months, there's a new build update, and they add more stuff, and it just keeps getting better. All right, so Daniel Smucker. Daniel, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yes.
His question is, what is your advice on starting a CFI business on your own? So before I go and jump and answer that, did either of you guys do that, or am I the only one that did?
No, I worked for a big flight school, and I mean, it was great because I had lots of students, but I think the advantage, as many as I wanted, but I think the advantage you'll get into, Trent, is you can charge, you keep more of the money, right? Because the student pay more and the house gets a cut, right?
Yes, it's significantly more, especially if you own your own aircraft. Then you get paid twice. So obviously, let's talk about the money. Yeah, as you know, I can make well over $10,000 a month as a flight instructor when I'm flying what I call with a full load of students. So that's pretty good money for a flight instructor. I'm making, between the aircraft and my rate, I'm making $100 an hour versus, if you're working for a school, you're probably going to get $20 to $25 an hour.
Yes.
So big difference.
Wow.
However, you got to have a source of students. Now, one of my mentors local was not a social media guy, had no YouTube channel, no presence online, and yet he was very, very busy because he got really good at just hanging out at the airport, saying hi to everybody, walking into hangars, introducing himself. And he was a really good instructor, and he was very personable, so he got a lot of referrals. Shout out to Dave. So that worked really, really well for him. I luckily never had to do that because because of what YouTube did to my life, as soon as I said, okay, I'm ready for students, like the emails just started coming in. So if you are the type of person who likes doing the social media thing, and you get traction with it. So obviously, why did I get traction? I had the unique story, the 91-day sprint, like it got a lot of attention. Without that, I get referrals, the AME here in town that does my medical, he sends me students, other students but I get most of my students from YouTube, to be honest, or from social media in general. So yes, absolutely. I think it's the best way to go. Because also when you're making that amount of money, if you have an extra hour or two in a day where you didn't have a student, instead of just going home, I just go jump in the airplane and fly, because I made well more than enough money already that day to pay, especially in a light sport, to go pay for an hour or two of gas. So you're really able to tap out those 8 hours a day every day. Now, I understand that some flight schools down in the Sun Belt, if you work for them, they'll keep you busy 8 hours a day. And then you don't have to look for students. And you don't
absolutely, they will.
But I didn't really feel like relocating and being away from my family for yet, like another 8 months. Like I was only away from my family for a month in the 91-day sprint, and then even that was enough. So for an old married guy like me, not really an option, but for someone who's young and doesn't mind relocating, might be the simplest path of least resistance is just go work for a flight school, live cheap, and just fly.
Yep. Very well said.
There's some mom and pop 61 flight schools down here in Florida where I'm at right now that do the accelerated training, and they keep their instructors so damn busy that these guys exceed the number of hours they're supposed to fly in a day, and they got to hide the hours and shift them around and put them in different dates in their logbook. I mean, it's crazy down here. If you want to get your stuff done fast or build your time fast as an instructor, Florida or Arizona is where you need to be.
Yeah. All right. Who's next here? We've got Patrick Voigt. Thanks for being here, Patrick. What do your wives think and feel about your profession, Trent, especially as a career 2.0? So, because I got called out, I'll go first.
Okay.
I won the wife lottery. I have an incredibly supportive wife. It was actually her idea. In February of last year, I had a waste management business that I just started, and right away our competitor started a price war, and I was like, F this, I am out. I am not getting into a price war. And I put the truck up for sale, and she's like, and that was literally a 10-second decision. No joke. My employee texted me and said, hey, those accounts we just lost them all because they dumped their price. And I was like, we're done. And it took 3 months to sell the truck, but whatever. But my wife said, what are you going to do? And I said, for the first time in my life, honey, I have no idea, but I don't want to do another startup right now. I'm tired. And she said, well, I know you like flying. Why don't you go fly? And that's where the idea came from. So that's my answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, I think the same thing. I'll go ahead, Sean. Or I mine will be brief, but yeah, my wife. I think what she could tell you at this point in my career, I'm actually home way more than a person with a 9-to-5 job.
Mm-hmm.
Now it depends on the line of work that your wife does. If she has a flexible schedule, or say she's a stay-at-home mom or something, you're probably going to spend about 300% more time with her than a normal person that's in the office all day. If she's home all day, I average a couple days a week maybe of being gone, but the rest of the time I'm home. So yeah, it wouldn't be a problem. Now, when you have really little kids, like I had twins, so we had two babies at the same time. It can be challenging, those times when you are gone. But if you have a good support system with your family, and then when you're home, she can be like, here's the babies. Okay, I'll see you later. So yeah, no, it's not what people think. I get that question a lot, that, oh, you're never home. Is it hard on your family and all that stuff? And I think I almost think it's a defense mechanism that people bring up that make themselves feel better about not doing it. But when you really live the life, it's not the situation. What would you say so, Sean?
Yeah, Patrick, my wife has said for years that because, I'm in and out of the house, because I'm gone every now and then, is the reason we're still married. but you got to look at it like this. What she actually means is, and Mike and I did a whole podcast about this on our show, on the Pro Pilot Playbook. First of all, Mike's completely right. Especially now at this point in my career, I'm home now more than I have ever been. And, half the time she's like, can't you take a trip or something? Can't you go? But it's nice when you go away you do a 2 or 3 day trip and then you're home the rest of the week. Most pilots work 3 days a week or something. You're gone. There's that separation. You're calling on the phone or whatever, and then you come back home, and everybody's, oh, daddy's home. Oh, I missed you. Whatever. Oh, let's go out to dinner tonight. It's like a revamping of the relationship every trip. It's good, right. And I 100% agree with you, Mike. People use this as some kind of scapegoat to not chase this thing down.
Yeah, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's right.
All right, Colin Holohan. What advice do you have for a 51-year-old that crushes the knowledge but struggles in the plane? Is that unusual? I'm fully committed to succeed. Thanks. Colin, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to let the senior not by age, just by experience, I'm going to let you guys go first. I think I'm probably the old one.
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I would say I would need some more information about, where you're at in your training and that kind of stuff. To give you an example, when I was a flight instructor, I had an older gentleman. It was one of my first students, and it was the guy who was the 110-hour student pilot, never soloed because just wasn't any good. So every time there was a new instructor showed up at the school, he got passed along to this. Here, you can have Joe. You take Joe. Go fly with Joe. And I actually cracked the nut on this thing. This guy's problem, he couldn't solo because he couldn't land. He was either smacking the airplane into the runway, thinking the runway was way past the airplane, or trying to land 50 feet above the runway. And, every time, then he would overcompensate or undercompensate, screw it up. Could not do it. I figured it out. Joe couldn't see. He needed glasses. That was the whole problem. We got him some glasses. Dude landed after we went around the pattern 3 times. He's greasing it on because he had 110 hours as a student pilot. And I signed him off to solo, and all the other senior instructors were staring at me. He was my first student. They're looking at me like, "You're nuts. You're letting him solo? Oh, my God. Somebody call an ambulance now." I think I got enough film in this camera to get all the carnage on, whatever. They were ready to go. And it was awesome. Greasing it on. But it could be something as simple as that. And I wouldn't sell yourself short. It could just be, people, we all start from the beginning in airplanes. Nobody is born Chuck Yeager. Nobody sat there like when you got your driver's license and watched your parents drive for 16 years. So when you got behind the wheel, it was not that new. I mean, you're starting from scratch in an airplane. Everybody does.
Right. And my hunch is,
Mike just saw some of the behind the scenes movie magic. My microphone and the styrofoam
your mic.
cup.
Very high tech.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would just add to Colin that my hunch is that you're probably not as bad as you really think, and you're probably being harder on yourself because of your age. You're more critical. I don't mean because you're older. I mean because you've lived longer and you think of things more analytically. And because to answer his question, what he's saying is actually kind of rare. Normally, students that study really hard do really well. And I think that's probably his case. He really wants it, and he's learning the knowledge. And maybe he's had a few hiccups. He's in a portion of his training that, he may need a little extra help with. But I think overall, he'll probably find that he'll do just fine as it just keep pushing forward.
So the only thing I want to add to this is on the topic of landing. I actually stumbled into the surefire, most effective way ever to teach somebody to land.
Okay.
And that is this. You tell them to come down, round out, and say, we're not going to land. We're going to fly down the entire length of the runway 2 feet above the ground. And so I was doing this with a guy who was struggling to land. And so he could fly it 2 feet above the ground, no problem. I said, okay, great. Now just pull the power. Plunk, right down to the runway every single time.
Great.
Anyway, if you're struggling with landing, you might want to try that. It's not the official technique that everyone else is teaching, but when it sure worked for him.
That's awesome.
Hopefully, Colin, we did a good enough job of answering your question. If you have follow-on questions, if anyone has follow-on questions, just put them down in the comments, and either in or after the live stream, we will do our best to answer them. Daniel Smucker, I just got my instrument, commercial, and multi in the last 5 months. Congratulations. And now getting my CFI and want to start instructing on my own. Oh, it's not a question. It's just a statement. All right, dude. Cool. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Great.
Yeah. Heck of an accomplishment. All right, Dylan, what are your thoughts on Southwest hiring freeze until 2024? I recorded a little short on that. And do you think this will be a trend for other airlines? This is actually a superb question, and you guys are going to have more insight into this probably than I do. So the floor is yours.
Well,
Yeah, there's been a lot of chatter on this, and I don't know. Me and Mike have had several private chuckles about it because people are acting like the sky is falling, and it has nothing to do with any type of actually a shortage being over or anything like that. This is being brought on by the main factor that's being advertised is Boeing's capability to deliver aircraft. Actually, there was just something that happened this morning, and unfortunately, the motor that the airplane that it was attached to was also another Boeing. But they got some issues they need to work out as a company, and unfortunately, some of these airlines are paying the price for it. There's also some underground rumors. I don't even know if we should say on here, even though this is live. It ends up on YouTube forever. Or
yeah. But there's rumors of different mergers happening behind the scenes that are stalling hiring. There are talks of different mergers. There's been some that have been shut down, so that's rumors. Who knows if that's true or not? Because if there's an acquisition from one airline to another, that the pilots' bases merge, and those may or may not go through, as you know. I think my big answer to this question would be, if you Google anybody that's concerned, and I see these pop up and we get emails all the time. Boeing, who's a very reputable company, except for the issues they've been having, did a large study on the pilot shortage over the next 20 years, and it was released this summer, so it's pretty accurate. And if you Google that and read it, you will find the staggering data showing the amount of pilots that are going to hit retirement, and then the amount of pilots being trained both in North America and worldwide, and there's just not enough. So these small hiccups that we're getting based on the economy, and okay, everybody spent their stimulus money, inflation, they're flying less, maybe these mergers are going on, so hiring slowed. By no means do I think a student right now that's going to embark on this should stop. And the thing that Sean was highlighting earlier was we laugh, and nobody likes hear old guys talk about how things used to be, but I think it is really important in this case. So when Sean and I started our career, and then 9/11 hit. Then that's when we were like CFIs and just getting eligible for a job. And then we went through the 2008 financial crisis, which was the worst economic catastrophe in modern history, and we were all fine. I mean, we really were, and we wouldn't trade a second of that in our career for doing anything else. It's not like, oh, you guys went through all this, and I bet you have regrets ever doing it. No, nobody does. We just did an interview that's going to drop next week, where we interviewed a DPE that had a huge, diverse history in flying, and he said the exact same thing. He was furloughed, he had different airline jobs, but every time times get bad, that gives you another opportunity to maybe switch jobs, try something new, reinvent yourself, and it's just been a wonderful thing. So when we were CFIs, you needed 500 hours of multi-time. I mean, people right now are complaining they need 750 single engine. It's like, come on, man. And then, the only regional, when I came up, the only regional airline that was hiring was Comair, which is now defunct. And they paid the starting salary. There was no sign-on bonus. Let me tell you that. The starting salary was $18,000 a year.
Woo!
You were required to pay for your own training at the airline, which was like $17,500. That was your first year. So you made no money. You had to pay for your own hotel when you were in training. And most candidates had 5,000 hours that were applying for that job. It was so difficult to get.
And there was a line out the door of 200 people trying to get the 20 jobs that they had. And now you can walk in and get a regional jet job and forget to wear your belt with your suit, or not wear socks, and they're hiring you. I mean, we're looking for perfect human specimens back then, and it was a 2-day long interview.
Yes, but the point is, for your viewers, is that we lived this, and we found work, and it was still a wonderful journey. And we're not even in the same universe as that world. So you can tell we're very passionate about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is Steven, and I didn't add anything to that, guys, because I didn't have the only thing I would say is sometimes there can be a backup on simulators. So the regionals are so busy training new captains, there's no time to train first officers, and so that pushes back class dates and training dates and indoc and all that other kind of stuff. So that is an artificial bottleneck that has nothing to do with the economy or the greater trends. The Boeing report is spot on. Like, just think about the number of people retiring. That's not suddenly going to change. It's not like people are going to go, well, I was supposed to retire at 65, but I'm going to stay till 70, because it's not really an option.
Well, until my prophecy of the FAA changing the mandatory retirement I've said this. This is probably, I'm in the year 3 of saying this. I think they're going to raise it to match the retirement age of the IRS, the 67 and a half. I think that's my prophecy. Or they might just leave off the half and make it 67 or 68 to alleviate confusion. But I really think that that's going to happen. And they've already talked about going to single pilot and freight operations, more autonomous flight in the freight operations. Airbus just finished production of the largest freighter aircraft built only for freight, and it's certified for single pilot. And so they're going to try all this stuff out first in the freight world, because nobody's going to complain too much of an airplane full of boxes,
Or they could reduce the stupid
crashes.
1,500-hour rule.
There you go.
Yeah. Although once I'm through the 1,500, I don't want them reducing it.
I don't think they're going to do that, Trent, in my opinion. I don't think they would do that. We already have, like Mike just said, like that Comair regional job. The guys that got those, they had 3,000 to 5,000 hours. They had a slew of 135 flying boxes in the middle of the night jobs, and they were a flight instructor for 2.5 years, busting their butt, making $12 a day. I mean, and there was no GPS back then. There was no moving maps. There was no magenta line. These, those guys, they were flying NDB approaches, NDB holds. Most of the check rides were done in an actual airplane, because simulators were just for big jets. Nobody had them. I mean, those guys were a different, now I sound like the old guy saying this, but it's kind of true. It was a different breed of pilot back then. So the 1,500-hour rule, I think, is probably a good idea we leave that there.
All right, next one was from Steven. It was Steven Von Wald. Basically the same question. The only thing he added, he's like, I can't even get a DPE to respond. I've tried contacting 7 of them. That's a nationwide problem, and I don't have any magic wand for that, and I'm guessing you guys probably don't either, but I didn't want Steven to think that we just skipped past his question without answering it.
Gotcha. We addressed it in that show Mike just referenced. You're probably just about to say that, Mike. Sorry, the delay on this thing.
I had a good friend. We filmed it yesterday. That is a DPE, and we specifically addressed that. He named a number of things that are happening in the FAA, and he kind of explains why that's happening and how things may change. So, yeah, that may be helpful to him.
All right, and just so everybody knows where we're at, I'd thought we were only going to go an hour, but looking at the scroll bar on the questions, I'm not even at the halfway point yet, so I'm okay to keep going if you guys want to keep going.
Fine. And the viewers keep building.
Yeah, they do. We've got more people showing up. So, and for the folks on the far side of the world, because I got an email from a couple of them on my list, they're like, Trent, I got to be up at 3 a.m. for this damn thing. Come on, man. So apologies to you guys.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. So this guy's username is Make It Mazio. So biggest concern is a fear that at a point I get my commercial license and ready to build hours. I'm not sure how I'll make it happen financially, as I have a wife and 2 kids to support with my career. So not really a question, I don't think, because he didn't put a question mark at the end of it, more of a statement. But, my answer to that is, it might come across as a bit blunt, but no matter what you're doing in your life, whether it's aviation or something else, I'm of the belief that you pays your money, you takes your chances. There's no guarantees in the world. Not that I'm aware of, not in the world that I live in. So I don't think, and please feel free to disagree with me, guys, and give a different answer, because obviously you have different perspectives than I do. But the way I look at it, I guess maybe it's my entrepreneur mindset, is if I want something bad enough, I'm just going to go for it. I don't need a guarantee of a specific result, because I know that my pig-headedness and stubbornness and resilience will most likely, not always, but most likely get to that result. And the only way to really fail is to stop trying. So
love it.
I don't know if that's like a great answer. It probably doesn't make them feel any better, but that's at least how I look at it. If you guys want to, give a nicer answer than that, please feel free to do so.
When this kind of thing comes up, I love the quote by Jim Carrey, the comedian actor.
Yeah.
He talked about his father. His father was a jazz trumpet player. He was like really good and whatever. I mean, very talented. But you know, his wife was pregnant with Jim, I guess, and the trumpet playing wasn't. I mean, he's right on the cusp of making it. You know, could have been one of the most famous trumpet players ever. But his wife's pregnant, and whatever, life is happening, and so he quit all that and went to work at, I think, a furniture manufacturing plant making chairs, and to be able to make ends meet and pay the bills and put food on the table. And the furniture place went out of business, and he got fired. So Jim's quote is, "You can fail at something you hate. So why not go ahead and go for something you'd love?"
Yeah.
I mean, don't
awesome.
make excuses. You got to.
Yeah.
Everybody else has the same amount of time and the same problems, but we figured it out.
Another way to think about that is the only people who have a plan B are people who don't have enough conviction to make plan A a reality.
Got to burn the boats.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is you know, I would tell you to look at the guys that are doing it. Now it's hard because you're just watching YouTube videos and probably some of our people think we're brilliant. Now Trent is brilliant. We know his background and he made it in business.
Yeah.
But
Didn't you watch
Sean
my
and I are
video
just
of all the
average guys.
mistakes that I made? That's not brilliance, man.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. But you know, really, in my experience now that I've been in aviation for 25 years, they're just average people. All my friends are. Nobody's super intelligent. And Trent, you know this from doing flight instruction. You know, people think pilots. This is this class of astronauts that are super bright. And maybe I can't do it. And really, that's just not the case. We have an episode where we interviewed a fighter pilot, and I asked him, because I know people think this. I'm like, "What kind of student were you? What kind of grades were you getting in school?" You know, he's like, "Man, I got C's and B's, and I'm not really, I never really excelled in school. I don't really consider myself that, ultra intelligent." And that's a fighter pilot. This is a guy flies F-16s, So I would tell your viewers, anybody with average intelligence can do this. You just have to have the dedication, like you said, Trent.
Yeah, agree. All right, so Enrique Velez, Velez, I'm going to take my best stab at that.
Okay.
I have a question. I've been a private yacht chef cooking for high net worth individuals for 10 years. Would I be able to use that skill set to leverage getting a job in the corporate pilot world? You're way more qualified to answer that than me, so I'm not going to speak to it.
Absolutely, yes. That's going to be a great interview feast. Now, you still have to be qualified on paper. You have to have all your ratings and things. But corporate interviews, they love business people, and they love to see a relation in your background to what you do. And that one of the main things they're looking for when they're interviewing a pilot is, how is this guy going to interact with the owner, right? And they want to know how you're going to interact with the other pilots, because you have to spend so much time on the road for it. And are you going to make a good impression on the owner? With a track record of doing that, you're an absolute shoo-in.
Makes sense. All right. Next person, they don't have their username is just RBBAC. Any resources or schools recommendations in NKY, which I'm guessing is Northern Kentucky?
Oh, Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, that's our neck of the woods. Yeah, Lunken Flight Training is a good operation. We actually met with them, and we're going to film a video. They do accelerated training. Great operation. And then Sporty's Pilot Shop, man, the huge operation pilot supply store is also in that Northern Kentucky, southwestern Ohio area. And I would recommend both of them.
Next one, again, kind of just a alphabet soup of a username. The question is, any interest in owning an airplane to build time? We've lost Sean. I think maybe he'll be back in a bit. You can see him jumping around the cockpit there. We'll let him back in when he comes back.
You answer that one, Trent.
Yeah, any interest in owning an airplane to build time? Would you suggest it? So, yes and no. On the surface of it, if everything goes well, you could potentially save a bunch of money. But for example, in the light sport, new gearbox, $4,000 plus install. Just had to do that. Going to need an avionics upgrade because the Garmin 696, when you load databases for approaches, it doesn't have the full approach, so you can't really do instrument training in it even. So that's another expense. And then you're constantly, there's always, they're airplanes. They break. The more often you fly them, the more they break. So while your spreadsheet might tell you that, hey, this is a really good thing, in reality, it may or may not turn out to be a good thing from a math perspective. So, just, I guess, if you're taking on a lot of debt to do it and the debt's at a variable interest rate, I don't know, I'd be a little cautious. Whereas if you're paying cash for the plane and you've got the money and, then that's a little bit of a different scenario. So I don't think that there is a cut and dried answer to that question, at least not one that I can give.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. People remember in sales, they buy with emotion and justify with logic. So,
Yeah.
If you really want a plane, you could probably make it work. You can make the numbers work and seem like it works, but maybe it's just you really want a plane, which isn't bad either. I mean, everybody loves flying. Sean has a plane. I'd like to buy one sometime. So if you got the money and it's something you love, it may help you, But like you said, Trent, if you're struggling, it may not be the best answer.
Correct. All right. Next user is Scotty Scott. And maybe, Mike, while I'm reading this, text Sean and find out if he's coming back to join us.
Okay.
Because I know it sounded like the ground people were maybe kicking him out of the plane or something.
Yeah.
So if a company has a few private jets to move higher ups easier than an airline, would the captain be legally allowed to have either a student or low-hour pilot in the right seat, and would it be loggable? And I am not at all qualified to answer that. Mike, you're way more qualified than me.
I was texting him. I missed the beginning.
Okay, let me read it again. If the company has a private jet to move the higher-ups around, would the captain be legally allowed to have either a student or low-hour pilot in the right seat, and would it be loggable?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a complicated question, but I can briefly answer it. So legally, if you do ground training with that captain and then you do 3 takeoffs and landings, you can fly as an SIC in a jet. But practically, an insurance company would never approve that in a $20 or $30 million airplane. It probably not is probably the answer.
Okay. And just folks, so you know where Sean went, the FBO where he's parking is giving him a hard time because he's sitting in there and he's not putting the plane where the plane needs to be parked. And they're like, yo, dude, what the hell? So that's what he's doing right now. He's trying to park the plane. That'll be a first in the middle of a YouTube live stream. Oh, I had to go park my jet. Never said no one ever in a YouTube live stream.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay, what else have we got here? Gareth, hoping to start in July. Jack, I'm currently in the Allegiant Airlines program. After 3 years of flying with them, they offer $50,000 loan tuition reimbursement. My question is, should I instruct and then that's the end of whatever he was typing. So we don't have, maybe it'll show up later, but there's not a second part to that question. So unfortunately, it's hard to answer. Hank wants to exchange emails with Enrique. So you guys can probably figure out in the comments maybe how to do that. I'm not exactly sure. All right. So again, I'm going to mispronounce Moises's first name. Sorry about that. If you're accelerated, how long should a private pilot's license take? I'll answer that because I train private pilots over and over. Honestly, I think you can get it done in about a month. If you get good weather, if you're not getting weathered out and you're doing 5 flights a week and maybe flying on the weekends and maybe even some of those days you're flying twice a day, you could get it done in a month. And that's assuming, of course, that you've knocked out the written exam before you did any of that. So if you want to count that, it's going to be longer than a month because while you're flight training, literally every minute that you're not in the cockpit working the stick and rudder, you're going to be working the textbook to get yourself ready for that oral exam. Philip Robinson, who might actually be one of my students coming up, because I know I have a Philip Robinson who's starting up with me here soon. So, Philip, if that's you, hello. Cool.
Oh, you better answer this one right then, Trent.
Western Washington isn't a good place either. I scheduled 6 lessons and 4 of them have been canceled due to weather. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest this time of year can be a pretty rough place to be doing flight training. Jim Trader 01, how long do you think it would take someone that is just starting learning to fly to land a job as a corporate pilot? Mike, that is all for you.
Yeah, so you could get all your ratings in 7 months, and then remember the 1,500-hour rule with the ATP doesn't apply to corporate flight departments. But it is kind of rare, like right at like 250 hours or so, that you would get hired, you'd be eligible. But we were just speaking to this with some colleagues, but it seems like that sweet spot's in the 700 to 800 hour range. But if you start networking right away and everything, I mean, it can happen faster than you think. Yes.
Yeah, so I can speak to that a bit. I know that there's the biggest FBO here in my town told me that as soon as I have 800 hours to go and see them. I don't know that I'm going to, though, to be honest with you, because it would actually slow down. Like everybody's like, oh, I want to get a corporate jet job. Well,
right.
I want to get an airline job more than I want the part-time, lower paying right seat in a corporate jet where I'm really not going to build much time. So I'm actually not going to go apply for that job. I'm going to keep on driving the CFI bus all the way to the 1,450 hours that I need to get hired by SkyWest, because they're going to spend 50 hours in their simulator training me as a part of their in-dock, or whatever the right name for that is.
Yep.
So yeah, you could. There's definitely opportunities out there, but should you? That's the question.
Right.
And
I agree with that, Trent. I mean, there's years I fly 125 hours total a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're not time building anymore.
No,
not really.
It would take, if you're at 700 hours, it would take you 5 years to get to 1,500. Yeah.
And I look at it this way. Think of the lost income at the tail end of your airline career, because that's the money you're really playing with. So if you figure, well, okay, I'm young enough, maybe for me, maybe I'll be making $250,000 for the last couple of years of my airline career, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, if I lose 4 years, that's $1 million of earnings that I'm out, and I'm giving that up to be able to fly right seat in a King Air, making $5,000 a month for 4 years.
Not a good plan.
That math doesn't work. All right. Big BP. I have my instrument check ride coming up. What's something you would recommend? I've been loving it. Oh, and guess who's back? Let me let him in. Sean, and we'll put him back on the right. There he is. Oh, look at you looking all official.
We had a little bit of a disagreement with Private Sky here in RSW. I had to fire up and move the airplane. But yeah, let me get situated a little bit. I'll mute this thing and be back with you.
Are you taxiing in the middle of our live stream?
Well, technically not right now. I'm stopped, but yeah.
I cracked a joke while you're gone. I said, I got to go move my jet. Said nobody ever in the middle of a live stream. So this has got to be a first.
Yeah, this might be the first ever live stream somebody had to go fire up their jet and move it off a parking lot, because the line guys got off at 10 Eastern time, and I don't know, some type of insurance rule.
Yeah. All right. So back to Big BP's question. Got my check ride coming up. What's something you would recommend? Also, thank you, PPP. That's you guys. You are one of the reasons I started flying, and I am in Vero Beach. So, Mike, if you want to take that one, please do. Or Sean, if he wants to take it, by all means.
That's where I'm heading right now. I'm actually departing RSW to go to VRB, where this gentleman's private hangar is. This airplane lives over in Vero.
You're doing that tonight or in the morning?
Yeah, tonight. And then tomorrow morning, I'm flying out to Salt Lake. I don't know. I've been in the air like 7 hours today. It was like 5 hours yesterday. I never stopped flying.
Apparently
People
not.
wear me out.
All right. Well, let's try and get this guy's question answered. So the first part of it, I have my instrument rating check ride coming up. Is there anything that you would recommend?
Yeah.
So
yeah, actually, I can give him a preview. We just did this hour-long interview yesterday with a DPE on how to ace your check ride, and that's one of the questions I asked him. I'm like, "There's a guy going to watch this. He found it on YouTube because he has a check ride tomorrow, and he's going to be concerned about what." Failing it, and he wants to know any tips. How can he ace this check ride in general? And he said, and this is a guy that's given hundreds of check rides. He said,
Yeah.
man, just be decisive and confident in your decision making. Okay. If there's a problem, just correct it. Don't get wrapped around the axle. And it's easy to say, but he said, there's so many times like something will go not quite right during the check ride, and then the student will look at him and say, well, what do you think we should do? Like, there's weather over there. What do you think we should do? And he's like, man,
Done.
and he has to say, I'm just a passenger, I'm just here. But he's like, that's my pet peeve. I want to see you make real world decisions and overcome obstacles as they come at you. You have to continuously deviate from the standards to fail. And they tell you at the beginning, if you don't hear the words, okay, that was unsatisfactory, that means you're passing.
Yep.
So if you mess up on something on your instrument ride and he doesn't say anything, you're good. So don't dwell on, what went wrong, and it starts to get in your head, and then you start not focusing on what you're doing. You make more mistakes. Just put it behind you. If you didn't hear those words, keep trucking on. So yeah, that's the best advice.
So I have two parts to add to that. One, on my instrument check ride, I got the gouge. For anyone who doesn't know what a gouge is, it's from hearing from other students kind of what to expect. And we were approaching this, it was an ILS approach, and there was a procedure turn, and he brings you in high on purpose to the point where you're going to have a really hard time getting down to the minimum altitude for the final approach fix. And so he's looking to see what you do. And so he did this thing to me, and I kind of knew what was going on because of the gouge. And I think the altitude of the final approach fix was, I don't know, 3,500 feet or something. I'm up at 38, and I'm like, I've got all the power out, all the flaps in. And I said, yeah, I'm going around. And he goes, great, no problem. So again, don't be afraid to make the decision as pilot in command. And then the second thing is Microsoft Flight Simulator is absolutely your friend for flying, for training for your instrument. And you can either use something called Navigraph, which has charts, FAA or Jepson charts, or you can literally just hook your iPad up with your ForeFlight account. There's a little free piece of software that connects Microsoft Flight Simulator via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I forget which one it is. I think it's Wi-Fi if you're on the same network, to your ForeFlight, and you'll see the little moving plane on your ForeFlight just like you're in a real aircraft. Awesome. So you're exactly simulating the real world. So the DPE is going to be giving you a ride on presumably a whole bunch of airports and a whole bunch of approaches that you've flown. You can get a whole lot more practice by jumping in Microsoft Flight Simulator and going and knocking out those approaches.
Love it.
All right, Jack, try to join a Legion or try to get into a jet job before 1,500 hours if possible. I don't think that's a question. I think maybe he was speaking to someone else's comment.
Other guy was asking about that Legion program.
Jeremiah, what's up, homies? Watched both of your group videos, finished nearly 20 hours, and got disqualified for vertigo. No interest in fighting it, but I appreciate your inspiration. Sorry to hear that, Jeremiah. That sucks.
Oh, man, that's a shitty problem. Yeah, I know people that have had
that. James Wasom or Wassam, any thought on the fixed wing medevac career and quality of life? I'll take a quick stab at that before I hand it over to you guys. Pilot Katie does that. But the one thing, and it all sounded great until I asked her, by the way, do you work the backside of the clock? And she goes, yeah. And for me, instant no-go. Yeah. That takes years off of your life. If you want to go read the science about interrupting your circadian rhythm or whatever the hell it is by doing the backside of the clock, I would go, but I would never take a job where I had to do the backside of the clock.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Trent.
It's just a 135 operator. I mean, it's Whether you're flying them in a stretcher or flying them to their meeting, it's a 135 operator.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
All right. Amar, Mike, and Sean, I started flight training because of you guys now at 150 hours total time. So a good golf clap for that one right there. Never too L8. Never too L8. That's an interesting name.
Never too late.
Never too late. Yeah. Do you think a bachelor's degree is really prevalent at this point, or go right into getting the ratings in JAX in Florida? I think skip the degree, get the ratings.
We've done a couple episodes on that on our show. That's a loser.
That's easy.
Yeah. All right. Ken K039, 57 years old, halfway into my private. What are my chances for a career, maybe corporate? So 57 is... What is that? What am I? 54 now. So that's 3 and some years older than me. That's a meaning.
Definitely not. Now that you put it in that perspective, he's done.
Well, that's a meaningful. So I look at it this way: I'm going to get like a decade in part 121, and he just lost like a third of that decade. But I've talked to people who've had classmates in a part 121 op that were like 59.
Yeah.
So.
Totally.
I'd say, you're not going to fly long, but hey, go fly corporate after that, because you'll get all the turbine time and all the multi-time that you could ever want while you're at that part 121 gig. So if you want it bad enough, I'd still go for it.
I agree.
Okay, cool. Who's next? Jack. Trevor, I'm trying to skim between what's comments and what's questions.
Yeah.
Hand pink waving. So this is Trevor Dunavant.
Okay.
How common is it for a job to reimburse my training costs? Want to get debt free as fast as possible so I can start enjoying my pilot salary.
I have not heard of that trend. I mean, other than those signing bonuses that some of those airlines offer. Now, once you
talk about primary training, there's the cadet programs.
Right.
I would definitely, you could look into the cadet programs. I think most of those want you to show up with your private as kind of a prerequisite to make sure you at least have some of the right stuff to continue.
Well, I know of one operator that will pay for all of your training, no questions asked. It's called the U.S. military.
There you go.
Yeah, there's always that one too.
There's always that one. Marty Miller, do you recommend taking the written before starting instrument flight training? I recommend taking all the writtens. If you're training on an accelerated basis, yes, take all the writtens before your flight training, because you ain't going to have time to do it all.
I love that. Yes.
Okay. Mark, hey guys, sorry I'm late. No worries, Brad. All right, Michael Smith. Question: as a career 2.0 looking at 100K for training, how to balance an ROI 4 years with unknown airline health economy for the next 5 years? I think we've kind of spoken to that one in the past. It really just comes down to, how bad do you want it and are you willing to take the risk? And none of us have a crystal ball, so I don't think there's a better answer to that question.
Right.
If we're looking at the straight data, there is nothing unknown about that.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to fly an airplane into a building and scare the public from getting on passenger airliners? Is there going to be another worldwide virus? Who knows? But if everything remains the same, this is the best time in human history to become a pilot.
Oh, by the way, call back to, we were talking about Boeing earlier. John Oliver just did a whole episode on Boeing that was published yesterday. Okay. And oh my gosh, you want to go watch that. Boeing is not the Boeing that built the reputation that Boeing is. And it's been a successive group of
documentary.
Have you seen Downfall?
No.
It's a Netflix documentary on Boeing. And
it's
really well put together, and it's the same concept, the same plot.
basically increase the share price at all costs. I'm really happy I don't work in the PR department for Boeing, because man, I would not want to have to be dodging those fireballs right now. No, thank you. Okay, so Justin, should I get my private pilot before attending ATP? I have no experience with ATP, but I don't know why you would want to do that.
It used to be
it's $20,000 less if you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to spend 20 grand getting a private.
I think it's 6 to 1. Yeah. I mean, I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. You know, if you've already started your training, you got some hours here and there, like a lot of guys, it's probably better to just get it finished and then start. But if you're going from 0 to hero, just freaking go all in and get their loan and knock it out.
Right, because they'll finance it and everything. That used to be, like I was just saying, it was a prerequisite for ATP. They didn't want to mess with you unless you had your private, because they know that that's the weakest link. You know, some people really struggle with it. There's a bunch of extra time built in to get people through their private. But they really wanted to do that 0 to hero thing, so they will take you. But
gotcha.
Yeah. So Brad Crow, what's a reasonable cost for an accelerated instrument rating? So I'll take a stab at this. It's just basic calculator math. If you've already knocked out the 50 hours of solo that we talked about earlier, you basically need 20 hours in an airplane with an instructor. Call that $250 an hour. So that's $5,000. And you're going to need another 20 hours in a simulator. So simulator times, call it $50 an hour, and maybe it's another 70 for the instructor. So that's 120 an hour times 20 hours. It's another $2,400. So $7,500. I don't see you getting it done for any less than $7,500.
I agree with those numbers.
Ben, if your goal is to be an airline pilot, how can you get a head start on instrument training during your private? You can absolutely overlap those two ratings. I have private pilot students. To be honest with you, you're working on your first 3 ratings all at one time. Commercial, because every hour that you fly counts towards the 250. So you're working on your commercial for every hour that you fly. While you're waiting for your check ride for your private, you can absolutely start going and working on those. You can chunk away at those 50 hours of solo time, because your instructor can keep endorsing you to go on solo flight, just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then also you can work on instrument procedures, though, as I do with my students, I give them a little taste at the beginning, but I don't use up their whole 20 hours, because I'm like, go knock out the 50 hours and then come back and put me back in the cockpit with you, and let's spit shine everything and make sure that you're ready for your check ride. And then the other thing, as we've already mentioned, is Microsoft Flight Simulator. You guys want to add anything to that?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I was trying to find something here. This is one of the flight schools that we're recommending a lot, 360 Aviation up in Minnesota. They have a 10-day instrument course. Their 10-day instrument course is $48.99. That's all of your ground and flight instruction. The airplane cost is separate. And then they have 172s, Archers, and Diamonds to choose from. And you can, whatever, it goes from there. But
yeah, you're gonna be
that's what you're looking for, a company that specializes in this extreme accelerated stuff. And that was my 2 cents.
Okay. Waleed says, awesome to see you guys together. 2 of my favorite aviation channels. 2 of your favorite. Aren't we the 2 favorite? I mean, come on now. So Matt, do flight schools and students underutilize approved instrument trainers in their training? If so, why? Yeah, I think they do. Either there isn't a good one close by to where they're training, or nobody sat them down and explained to them, saying, look, you could use this and save yourself a whole bunch of money. And that's what, in my case, somebody said that to me, and there was a simulator there, so why wouldn't I use it?
Yeah.
All right. Second career guy here. This is Thomas Johansson. Second career guy here with aviation background in operations dispatch and flight planning. In my late 40s, got 1,160 hours total. Had my first airline assessment for a King Air SIC job. Awesome job. All right. As in well done. Not awesome. Not necessarily. Anyway. Went through, and this is the same guy, went through the phone interview, online assessment, and panel interview, made it to the sim assessment, but didn't perform my best. Unfortunate. Well, we all get nerves in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Jose, Trent flew 2 days ago for the first time because of you. I will fly again tomorrow as well. Jose, that's very cool. Thank you for saying. Man, I'm now only now at the halfway of the comments, by the way, because people keep putting more at the bottom. So I know we'll try
to go a little quicker with our answers.
Yeah, we're probably not going to get to the bottom. I'm skim reading.
Is just a lesson to get in here earlier for the next one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just scrolling to see where the questions are. South Florida can be cheaper because some people are talking to each other. Okay, Gary, and I'm a career 2.0, best decision I've ever made. He really loves Shepherd Air. Now I'm literally just skimming for questions. Okay, so lost my confidence for David, actualized my journey. Okay, cool. Oh, here we go. It's actually really helpful if you put the word question at the beginning of your comment, because then I know right away it's a question. So Waleed says, what are some of your best cities to live in for corporate aviation gigs? I'm in LA, lots of stuff happening out of Burbank, Van Nuys, etc.
Great. I mean, LA is great. Any of the big metros, LA, Dallas, New York.
Basically where
Florida.
the money is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You hit it on the head, Trent. It's where the money's at.
Yep. Michael, are you guys hearing of any airline offering tuition reimbursement or additional entry-level pay increases?
Well, Frontier was offering
pretty much every
$50,000
airline's jumping on this the cadet program thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with it is, of course, is you have to sign a contract. You have to stay with them for a certain amount of time. And then if you don't keep your commitment, then you got to pay them back or they're going to come after you.
Yeah.
And the whole coming after you thing, don't even worry about that. If you don't keep your commitment, just think of who you're pissing off and where they might work someday. That shit is going to come and bite you in the ass. As Warren Buffett says, reputations take a lifetime to build and seconds to destroy. Do not sign on with a cadet program if you think that you're not going to be there. Because at some point, you're going to pay an idiot tax for that. In an interview later on, or some way, somehow, that shit is going to come and bite you in the butt. Willie, how long will the pilot shortage last? We've kind of spoken to that at length already. It's going to be around for a while. Read the Boeing report. Ronnie, how to avoid feeling dizzy during 45-degree angle steep turns? I don't have a good answer for that one.
Good physical fitness and watch what you eat and fatigue,
Okay. Giggity. Trent, can you talk about how you knocked out all of your ground schools specifically? I'm trying to figure something out, which online program to go with. I'll answer this really quick. Yep. It's a Canadian expression. I took all of my written exams before flight school. Then while at flight school, I basically created these long Google documents. They were all based on the ACS. So I would take every table from the ACS, I would screenshot it, I'd put it in the Google document, then I would read all of the questions in a specific table, and I would type out the answers. I would type out the question, then I would type out the answer below the table so that by the time I was done, I had this massively long Google Doc, usually 50, 60, 70 pages long, that was kind of like a scrolling flashcard, because every question that a DPE could ask me based upon what the ACS covered was in my Google Doc, and I had already typed the answer to every one of those questions, and then I would just scroll through it really slowly, and when the question would come onto the bottom of the screen and I couldn't see the answer yet, I would say the answer out loud, and then I'd scroll a little further and see if I got it right or wrong. And then by the time I would get to the end of that, like going through 6, 7, 8 times or more, I would give it to my wife. And if she couldn't stump me, if I could ace 75 pages, I knew I would have no problem passing the oral. And I absolutely crushed it in all of my oral exams for that reason.
Awesome.
So ACS. And for those of you who don't know what the ACS is the Airman Certification Standards. It is not a textbook. It is literally the roadmap to the topics that you must be knowledgeable on, and it references all of the textbooks and material that you need to read to gain that knowledge, and anything in there is fair game for the DPE to ask you. So make sure you understand the ACS and build your study plan around it.
Great advice.
And as far as ground schools go, I'm a big fan of Gold Seal. I've been through a number of them, and I happen to like Gold Seal, and so I recommend that my students use it. There's a link on my website if you would like to sign up for Gold Seal and have yours truly receive a little itty bitty commission from Gold Seal if you actually go ahead and buy it. Willie, how long will the pilot short? Oh, we got that one already. Downloading. Does anybody have some simulator systems home simulator systems they love to use? I'm not really sure.
Real quick, Willie, on that, the report I saw about 3 years ago extended out 10 years.
Okay.
I know that report Mike was just referencing. I have not got into that yet, but so you got plenty of time.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So somebody's answering Willie's question. Somebody's answering another person's question. There's a lot of cross chit chat going back and forth here.
Right.
So Casey asks, how many job options are there right after finishing a commercial? You guys want to take that?
Well, I mean, yeah, CFI obviously is the most prevalent, and it's not a difficult job to attain, and you build the hours quickly. We know that. The guy we interviewed from ATP that just graduated, he skipped his CFI and went to a mapping company in Reno, and it's a big operation all around. You got banner towing, and there's a lot of different time building entry level
aerial
stuff.
Survey, these, there's a whole Air Force of airplanes with cameras attached to them that Google uses, and everybody thinks it's satellites. It's actually a bunch of little airplanes with cameras attached to them, and they do grid flights over the country. And about the time they get it all done, it takes about 3 years. They got to start over and do the whole thing over again. And
skydivers.
Yeah.
It's like painting the Lionsgate Bridge. As soon as they get to one end, they go right back to the other end and they start doing it again.
Right.
All right. So here's a question that we have not come up yet from Hank Jones. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence potentially automating flying? My gut feeling is the FAA has lots of red tape. The FAA, the insurance, the public at large. I'm going to go third on this one. If you guys want to chime in first.
I think this is a big thing to consider when you're embarking on a career. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, the pilots are extremely expensive to hire, and they pay them a lot in the training and all of this stuff we're talking about. And there's a shortage of them. So naturally, the technology is going to take over. I actually was on a committee call with Collins Aerospace, and they were talking about this issue that they're working on, all this autonomous technology. So it's coming. The thing is, though, you got to look at this practically. How long do you think it's going to take? And just like you said, the public, freight's going to go first. It's all going to go to single pilot, then maybe airliners, and then last would be corporate. I just think the ultra wealthy people, I don't know. I've heard an owner tell me airplanes need 2 engines and 2 pilots. So yeah, is it something you should have on your radar? Yes. Is it a concern though? Embarking on this career, I would say no.
Yeah, I asked that question. A friend of mine is a captain at Delta, and he's like, yeah, it's going to be an issue in 20 years. That was his answer. Now, does that mean his answer is the right answer? I don't know, but he's a Delta captain, and so he's got probably more insight into what's going on than I do. So I'm not really in a position to disagree with him, other than what Mike just said, common sense. When's the public going to have confidence? Well, they're going to have robots flying cargo around in Amazon jets for probably 10 years before the public's going to be okay with, and no crashes, not one crash in that period of time before the public's going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm good at getting on an airplane flown by a robot. So that's a long ways off yet.
Yes.
Yeah, my opinion on all this AI stuff. I was just out in Vegas, and I went and did this. I went to the Sphere out there, and I did the. I didn't do U2. I did the other show they have in there. And before you go in, you spend an hour underneath the Sphere. They show you all the technology of what makes it work, and they have some of the computers that connected to these robots. This AI. I mean, you can ask this thing anything, and it was mind-boggling how smart these computers are. They can see what color shirt you're wearing, and I asked the thing. I said, well, the robot asked me, Sean, what's your favorite part of the Sphere? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I guess the images on the outside are pretty neat. She's like, oh, okay. Well, what's your favorite one? I'm like, oh, the emoji's nice. And she's like, oh, yeah, 76.4% of humans love the emoji figure on the outside of the Sphere. She's like, do you have any questions for me? And I'm like, yeah, where would it be a good spot to hide a dead body on, the outskirts of Vegas? And she's like, ha, 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 very funny, Sean. Let's talk to one of the younger humans. How about you over there? And she pointed to a little boy behind me. But it was crazy. You would think that it was like the Wizard of Oz and there was a guy behind a curtain with a microphone or something. But no, it was legit a robot. I mean, it's like nobody has seen any of the Terminator movies.
Yeah. All right, I've been scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, looking for more questions as you guys were talking. I found one from Jason Suber Medical. I know you can't give medical advice, but how difficult is it to get an initial first-class medical if one's file has to go to the OKC for approval? I don't know what the OKC is. Can you both do a podcast on the medical?
Oak City, where the head of the FAA is.
Okay. Okay. So do you, I don't have an answer to that question.
No. Yeah. So he's saying he has a medical problem and it needs approval from OKC?
I think that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on what the problem was. I mean, they are operating very slow with approvals. My advice is go to an AME. Not just there's some of these aviation medical examiners that are just doctors, and then they like flying, so they occasionally do medicals. You want to go to a guy that's like a medical factory. That's all he does. And that guy is very used to dealing with problems, and they can give you advice on how long this will take.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do, guys, because I've been scrolling quickly. I've got to the bottom of the comments. So this is the last call for questions. If you have a question, type question, and then put your question. So that way I know right away it's a question. And we will do a few more of these before we wrap up, because I'm on kid duty tonight, and my kid was supposed to be in the tub 35 minutes ago, and I know she's still sitting on her iPad, so I have got to go in and deal with that pretty quickly.
It's 10:40 here. I wanted to say, while we're waiting for those questions, this has been a lot of fun to do, and I wanted to tell everyone that this idea to do this tonight came from a YouTube comment. Remember, Trent, you sent it to us, you circled it and put it on. So we do read those things, and we love your comments. And if you have any suggestions on tonight's show or how we could improve it or whatever, just let us know. Yep, absolutely. Okay, we've got one. I'm going to take one last question, because after my last call for question, well, there's two. So stop. No more questions. We're going to do these two. Number one, how important is a driving record? I have no idea. You can have issues when they.
I mean, a DUI is bad.
DUI and stuff. They do look at that. And then I did hear airlines sometimes look into your driving record, and some corporate operators. So you don't want to be like a reckless driver or anything like that. DUI, they'll avoid those like the plague.
Yeah, I actually have a good amount of experience in this. I've flown for two different
you're a bad driver?
And a good friend of both Mike and myself, he's a bit of a race car driver and had a sketchy driving record. He was all concerned about it with his, he just got hired at the Big D in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But his driving record, the stuff was kind of suppressed a little bit, but they absolutely pulled the driving record from every municipality that he lived in. He ever had an address. And then, of course, they pull your NDR, your National Driver Registry. And that's how, Canada keeps people from DUIs coming into their country. And that's where if you have a DUI or a reckless op, it ends up on that report. And you can pull a copy of that for yourself. That's a federal thing. So every time you move states or whatever, it follows you around forever. Your state records stay in your state, but now everything's going electronic. More things are being shared, but absolutely, your driving record is going to come up in an airline interview.
All right, this is the last question from Harry Pilly. Would you like to comment on some of the time building programs? Do recruiters prefer time building versus instructing?
The short answer is I think instruction looks better, but it's all based on supply and demand is really the answer. So if you're in the right place at the right time and you're qualified for the job, they're going to hire you. Now, if things soften a little bit, or you're in a market where there's very few jobs where you live geographically or something, they may choose the flight instructor over a time builder.
Yeah, and I only have an opinion on this. I think that they're going to prefer an instructor, and I say that opinion based upon just pilots that I've been able to talk to as a result of being the host of this YouTube channel. I get lots of communication from pilots, many of them long time in the career, sometimes early on. I've talked to hiring managers, and on more than one occasion, I've never had anybody say we prefer time building to CFI, but I've heard multiple times, oh, it looks good when you've got a CFI, a double I, and an MEI.
Sure. Absolutely. If it was 20 years ago, I would say that you're playing with fire, trying to go buy all your time and fly around in circles and burn it off. But in today's market, I don't know that it really matters that much. Obviously, if you're staring at two candidates and you're on the interview board, and one of them, they both have 1,500 hours, and one of them was a CFII, and one of them bought, 1,500 hours of 150 time in a block from their grandpa for $50, and that's how he got all his time. You're going to take the CFI.
Yeah. All right, gang. As I mentioned, I got a kiddo in the tub. I think it's pretty late for both of these guys because they're in a later time zone than I am. So on behalf of Sean and Mike and the Pro Pilot Playbook and Fly with Trent and my channel, I want to thank the couple of hundred of you who came to spend this last hour and 35 or so minutes with us. It has been an absolute joy. We will happily do this again in the future, guys. If you want to have any parting words, the floor is yours.
No, we just really enjoy it, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah. Hopefully next time we do this on our channel, that was the big plan.
Yeah, we'll be better prepared.
This was awesome. This was so cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone, or maybe it's good morning, depending on where the world you're in. But we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.